The recruiting dust has settled. So let's really get into the meat of this roster ranking countdown.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. We'll talk about Game Time here in just a little bit. Want to thank you every day for being here every day. Thank you, newbies, for being here today. And thanks everybody for making us the first listen every single day. You guys are the best. So, Jimmy, we can talk. I do want to talk about a sort of a weird thing going on with recruiting in terms of the SEC here in just a moment. But I think now the recruiting dust is pretty much settled. I mean, it's going to be chill, I would think, for a little bit. I mean, Tank Jones could pop at any moment, I suppose. Alabama could get another surprise commitment from somebody who isn't going to necessarily move the meter a ton. But I think right now, and by the way, there are going to be new rankings today, I think, from On3, which could change some things up. And we'll talk about that tomorrow if that were to happen. But I think it's time to really get into the heart of your roster ranking countdown. You're to the point where it's essentially starters from here on out. I know, I guess technically you'd be at 22 if that were the case, and we're not right at 22. But a lot of these dudes we're about to talk about are going to be playing starters minutes.
Yeah, and I think we've been there for a couple of days, really, or last couple of updates. We've been the guys that we're going to see every single Saturday. And boy, today we really are, because we'll talk about today. Today we're 24 days out, but we'll do 25 and 24 today. 25 is Cam Calhoun. And, the day he committed out of the portal to Alabama, he's the Utah transfer cornerback. The day he committed, I was a little almost confused. I wasn't sure that the need, but then as things developed and then the spring gets here, then it was obvious this was really smart by Courtney Morgan in terms of the roster management to add a veteran corner. And really, Cam competed with Daeshon Lee this past spring for kind of like, who's going to be cornerback 3. One of the things I've been doing recently, Luke, as you know, I do every summer, watch last year's games. I do all the summer leading up to fall camp to remind me, specifically about players that are returning. And here's one of the things that stood out to me watching last year's games. How much Jalen Mbakwe, who was cornerback number 3, how much he was playing from about mid-season to the end of the season. Mbakwe was out there all the time. He wasn't the starter. The starting cornerbacks were Damani Jackson and Zabian Brown. But Jalen Mbakwe played a ton. So there's a lot of snaps here under Kane Womack in terms of how he substitutes. There's a ton of snaps here for cornerbacks 3, even cornerbacks 3 and 4. And kind of how I envision this working out based on what they did this spring, Luke, is I think Cam Calhoun and Daeshon Lee both will be out there quite a bit. Now, we know Damani's the starter, Zabian's the starter. But I think we're going to see a ton of Cam Calhoun. Pro Football Focus, I'm not the biggest fan of their college rankings, their college ratings that they give, their grades. I'm not a huge fan of it. I do not take it as gospel. But I do find it interesting. I do find it worthy of reading and seeing their opinion. I'd say that to say Pro Football Focus rating on Cam Calhoun's performance last year is outstanding. They really think he's one of the better cornerbacks returning in college football. And he's not even a starter at Alabama. It should show the depth and how good this kid is, who's got a lot of eligibility left. I think he's a redshirt sophomore. So you got Cam Calhoun possibly for 3 years of eligibility. You lose Damani Jackson after this upcoming season. Cam Calhoun has a chance to be a real significant player at Alabama. I think people will be surprised how good he is. He's originally from Cincinnati, a teammate in high school, by the way, of Justin Hill, the true freshman, and Rael Kelly, the safety that's in this class. They all played at Winton Woods High School in Cincinnati, turned into a bit of a hot spot for Alabama. But very excited about Cam Calhoun in terms of how solid he was as a player at Utah, which is a good program. He's showing up well coached. Any kid that plays for Utah is going to be well coached.
And he was committed to Michigan, right?
He played at Michigan.
He played at Michigan. He committed there and played a year. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a big time recruit to the point. He's from Cincinnati, Ohio. Signed with Michigan out of high school. Thanks for reminding me to say that. Signed with Michigan out of high school. Sort of redshirted there. Played in a couple of games, but redshirted at Michigan. Transferred immediately to Utah. At Utah, he was basically a starter / third guy, but he played a ton of snaps, thus giving him that sporty looking grade from Pro Football Focus. Physical kid. Also, my understanding is unique personality, loud, kind of the class clown comedian of the DB.
Well, that's funny because I was just reading up on him a little bit in prep for this, which is shocking in its own right.
Yeah, there you go. There's your upset of the day.
But
for both of us,
he had a nickname by some as the Silent Assassin.
Yeah. I think
maybe that's being facetious.
I think he's a big hitter. And I'm sure a lot of it kind of comes from that. But no, he kind of cuts it up with the dudes. Very popular. I think it's probably the best way to put it. Very popular with his teammates, which is unusual for a guy who just showed up and a guy who hadn't been here day one. But watch him to compete with Daeshon Lee for that cornerback 3 role. And again, Mbakwe played a ton of snaps there as the third cornerback, especially mid-season on. Kane Womack likes substitute. Hey, I hear all the time that we're always praising and we never criticize. Here's one thing I will criticize. I've said it before. I'll say, I think Alabama plays too many players on defense. Maybe it's just because I kind of developed so much of my football philosophies that I believe in from the Saban era, and Saban hardly ever substituted, especially at DB. He just never would. He picked his 5 guys, and that's who played until the game was over. Kane Womack's not that way at all. He'll play 10 guys out there, and I suspect that's what we'll see this fall, like 10 DBs playing regularly.
Well, and that's why it doesn't worry me so much that Cam Calhoun is. I mean, I guess technically could come. I mean, assuming he comes back next year, then you got Daeshon Lee coming back. You've got all these young guys coming in. Xavier Brown.
Xavier will be back.
You've got a nice group of young defensive backs coming in. It seems like there's a lot, right? But if you're going to play a lot, you need a lot, and you don't need 2 superstars and a bunch of bums. You need a bunch of dudes, and it sounds like we have a bunch of dudes. But I'll tell you, the other thing that strikes me about what you're saying about Cam Calhoun, what a good time for somebody, even though it's rare, for maybe a transfer to come in and take sort of a leadership or at the very least an outspoken role. Because the guy last year was Jalen Milroe, like it or love it, like it or hate it, I should say, love it or hate it. And so he's gone now, and it created a bit of a vacuum and probably some uncertainty because, again, last year it's no secret that the Milroe could be moderately polarizing to probably even some of the players behind the scenes, right? And so he leaves, and you're sort of like, okay, now we got to find our new identity. What a great time for somebody like Cam Calhoun to come in, who's very confident, who's like, yeah, I run this show. You ain't scoring on me. You ain't getting past me. And he talks junk, and instead of people being like, hey, this guy's got to get with the program, people are like, oh, this is somebody we should pay attention to, because he backs it up too. So, all right, who's next on your list? I think it's another defensive back.
It is Daeshon Jones, who is a starter at the Husky spot. Here's some weird dichotomy. I have a lot to say about Daeshon. Here's a weird thing that no one ever really talks about, and I can't even. He didn't take over the starting Husky role until like late October. He wasn't even the starting Husky. Really, it was Missouri where that kind of started, which is even after the Tennessee game. That's when Alabama's defense really took off. That's when Alabama's defense turned the corner. It was basically when Daeshon Jones started being the every down Husky, and he was the 3rd or 4th guy they used there. They started out with Devontae Smith, and who was the starting Husky for most of the season, but Devontae got banged up and hurt, where he had to miss a lot of time, and then eventually Daeshon was playing virtually, a ton of snaps there. So they tried Devontae, they tried Red Morgan. He did pretty well for the most part, got beat a few times. They tried King Mack, who's terrible against Tennessee. But Daeshon took over, and they played much better from there. There you go.
Well, I thought that, okay, boy, that was a quick period. on Daeshon Jones.
Well, I have more to say. I was waiting for you to chime in, but no, I do have more to say. One thing, it's pronounced Daeshon. His nickname on the team's Day. Another kind of a leader guy, came from Wake Forest, played a ton at Wake Forest, was one of their best DBs. And here's why I think Alabama was sort of slow to use him as the starting Husky, because they tried 3 other guys before him, is most of the time they want a safety there. That's what Kane Womack wants, a safety at Husky, because he sees it as an inside, almost line of scrimmage position, and he wants a real physical presence there, and I get that. And I'm not saying he's wrong. It's his defense. He designed it. But under Saban, I always felt our nickel corner, because that's what the Husky is, the nickel corner, always felt we were better under Saban when the nickel corner was a cornerback, or at least a DB with cornerback skills. I like a cover guy there myself, because you are lined up on in the slot. And to give you an example of how important that is, I think this fall, a wide receiver you're going to see in the slot at Alabama a ton is Ryan Williams. You better put a cover dude on him and not some undersized linebacker. You better have a cover guy on Ryan. I like a cover guy there, and to me, it's just like, I like a cover guy. When you put a corner there, defense started playing better. Now, does that mean I'm right and Womack's wrong? Of course not. He's the encyclopedia on defense, and I
thought you were going to say
I'm an idiot with the show. Of course, I'm just the idiot with the show, and he's the encyclopedia on it. I just say I like a cover guy there, and I do think that's what Daeshon specifically brings to this defense: a cover presence at Husky, and in my mind, it's no coincidence that the defense started playing better once Daeshon started playing more snaps there.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. There was certainly a noticeable difference. I'm going to talk about something kind of weird in SEC recruiting here in this next segment. But right now I want to talk about game time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time can come in and help you. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food and drinks and merchandise, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it all possible, baby. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On Major League Baseball, making it easy to browse the app and for an exciting upcoming MLB game. And there's a bunch of them coming up. Look, I think the All-Star game is tomorrow night, if I remember.
1 week. 1 week.
Oh, 1 week? Okay. I don't know. I don't like baseball. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's all one word for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed from Game Time. Okay. So we're on it's sort of the Locked On College host text chain, right? And somebody posted this, that the number of SEC teams ranked in the top 25 of the 24/7 recruiting rankings for this year right now is 8. Now, on the surface, you're like, okay. I mean, if you were any other conference, you're like, it's not bad.
That's half the league.
But in 2025, it was 12. Now, I don't know if this is where they ended up or what.
I think it's where they ended up. It's where they ended up.
Okay, 2024 was 13, 23, 10, 22, 10, 21.
That was when there were fewer teams in the league, too.
Yeah, 21 was 9, and Missouri was 26, and Mississippi State was 27.
I don't think he's counting Texas and Oklahoma there, is he?
No.
Did he make that clear? No. I don't think he was.
No. Texas and Oklahoma would have been in just starting this year, I guess.
So my point,
last year too.
My point being that the SEC has fewer teams on the top 25 right now.
Yeah.
Even though there's more teams in the SEC.
Yeah.
than there is for a lot of his chart that he showed us. So it is a story, and it is, I don't know if alarming is the right word. I think interesting is a better word.
Well, and just going through them very quickly. And again, this is pre and on 3 update today, which will change a bunch of the composites. But I've just pulled up 24/7, and that's what he used, so that's what I'll go by.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is Georgia, 3 is A&M, 5 is Bama, 10 LSU, 13 Texas, 15 Tennessee, 16 Florida, 24 Arkansas, and then that's it. Oh my God,
surprising.
Jimmy, that I'm going to tell you, it's frightening a little bit. Now I say it's frightening. It's actually good if you're Alabama, right? Because you play a lot of SEC teams. You hope they all finish in the top. Don't finish in the top 100.
Certainly isn't bad for Alabama based on where Alabama sits.
Correct, but it is scary in the sense that everybody can say they don't want this. And I know there are a lot of people like, I don't ever cheer for SEC outside of Alabama or outside of Georgia or outside LSU, whoever their team is. I really think at our core, with the exception of whoever your arch rival is, like I'll never pull for Auburn. There's not a situation where I will pull for Auburn. I might say I would sometimes. I'm telling you in advance, I'd be lying. I don't pull for them in anything ever, okay? But that's what makes the rivalry good. My Auburn friends will never pull for Alabama, and that doesn't hurt my feelings. In fact, I'm sort of glad they don't. That makes me feel like I'm not alone in my insanity. But what I am saying is, for everybody else, like it doesn't. I kind of, if LSU's in a bowl game, unless I have a specific reason to hate LSU that particular year, I'm pulling for LSU. I'm pulling for Arkansas. I'm pulling for Tennessee or Ole Miss or Mississippi State. And I'm looking through here. I mean, even I think it was, where did I say Ole Miss was? Ole Miss
not in the top 25.
No,
that shouldn't be a real surprise because they focus so much on the portal at Ole Miss. They're the opposite of what Alabama does. Alabama focuses on high school recruiting, supplements in the portal. Ole Miss basically focuses on the portal, supplements through high school recruiting.
Well, here's some names that are in the top 25 that I think are a little surprising. SMU. Let me tell you something. SMU is going to have some leverage sooner rather than later.
They got money and they're in a talent-rich environment, much as anything else. I mean,
they care.
They care. They want to be good in football. They've got a good coach that a lot of people believe in. They got money, and most importantly, they're located in Dallas, Texas. I can't imagine the only other city that comes to mind that's just more convenient in terms of access to great prospects is Atlanta.
Yeah.
But see, the thing is, the University of Georgia isn't even in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I mean, SMU's in Dallas. And yeah, they got a pretty good recruiting situation. I'm not shocked to see them in the top 25 recruiting wise.
And then you've got North Carolina. Now, again, that's sort of a interesting situation in that they got Belichick. They've already got 30 commitments, which is, I mean,
Bill Bump.
Yeah, and they've got 26 of them. It is, I don't know that I've ever seen this where they have 30 commits, 4 4-stars, and 26 threes.
Yeah, I mean, that is, they have, and Belichick's probably going to be a pretty good evaluator, although I do think it is different evaluating high school players to college as opposed from college to NFL. They got the 3 kids from Jackson High School in Alabama. Me and you like all 3, Juice Gordon, and then the Chapman twins. And I think they're good players. If those kids are indicative of the 3 stars they're getting, they might be on to something, because I think those are really good evals myself. I like both the Chapmans and Juice Gordon quite a bit. We know Alabama was willing to take Juice Gordon at one point.
Now, here's a couple other things. Here's some teams that are in the top 25 that I think have a good chance to stay, but are surprising. Number 1 is Syracuse. Now, they have 26 commits, so they may, get bumped out as more people get numbers.
Fran Brown's sort of a hot name right now.
They got a big wide receiver that people thought was either headed to Miami or LSU out of the Miami area, and he very surprisingly committed to Syracuse this past weekend. Illinois is at 22, and I think they have a chance to stay in there. Washington's at 22. Or Illinois is at 21 with 22 commits. Washington's at 22 with 17 commits, and I think they've got a chance to stay. They've already got a 5-star too. And then Minnesota at 23 and Texas Tech with 18. I think those teams have a chance to stay. So my point is this: when you look at those numbers, and then you look at, say, all right, who's left on the board? Because again, Hugh Freeze very famously said that at Willow Point recently, hey, I still think we have a good chance to end up in the top 10. I'm looking at the people who are uncommitted in the top 100.
There's only 23. I counted them up this morning for something else. There's 23
That's
uncommitted players in the top 100. That's not many.
That's not many at all.
There's 6 months till signing day, and only 23 of the top 100, which sort of tells me, doing the simple math, that basically colleges are 75 to 80% done. I think Alabama's even a little more done than that. But the general college right now is 75 to 80% full, 75 to 80% done. So not much heavy lifting left until December, unless you're in Auburn. But the list of uncommitted guys is dwindling. And I think most of the news you'll see between now and December, Luke, are flips. Although, like I've said on the show previously, I believe the House settlement rules will lead to less flips. And I believe the House settlement rules are exactly explaining your whole point in the segment. Because I do think that I think all of us listening admit that NIL and the portal that started in 2021 created a new level of parity. Didn't create parity, but it created more parity than we had before. I think the House settlement rules will create even more, I think almost supercharged parity. It's just harder to dominate just simply because there is a cap, just like in the NFL. It becomes hard to dominate when there is a hard cap, unlike baseball that has sort of a cap. Not really, because you can go over the cap and pay anything you want as long as you pay what's called their luxury tax. You don't have that in college football. It is a hard cap. You have roughly 15, 16 million to spend on your football team. That's it. In terms of definitive revenue share money, the rest of the money comes from NIL, which is still kind of murky in this new era. Until that gets more defined, I think you basically are operating under this cap.
Okay, so media days, very, very close for SEC, but they actually get started tomorrow with the Big 12. And my son, who is at Arizona State, he works, does a lot of work over the Cronkite building, as that's where a lot of his schooling is taking place. And he's flying into Dallas.
Is it named after Walter Cronkite? Do you know?
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
I don't know. How would I know?
Name 6 famous Cronkrites.
I just want to say, so Walter Cronkite went to Arizona State. He must have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well,
I didn't know that either until he went there.
Cool. Yeah. I don't have.
And I'm kind of glad you asked it, because when I asked the question, people had the same look on their face
like
that I had on my face when you asked it.
I don't know. I don't even know who some of these people are that buildings at Alabama are named after. There's a picture the other day on Twitter, by the way, of Coach Bryant and the founding members of Indian Hills Country Club.
Yeah.
So it's like 1958. And it's a picture of Coach Bryant after he just got hired at Alabama, and a picture of him with like 15 guys that founded Indian Hills Country Club. And it kind of listed who all the names are. And like half the guys are the buildings at the university are named after, like there was like a Reese Pfeiffer. And I'm like, oh, Reese Pfeiffer Hall. This is the guy. It's pretty amazing. You ought to Google it and look it up. Like half the buildings at Alabama at the university are named after the people in this picture.
Well, hang on now. I feel even dumber, because Walter Cronkite actually went to the University of Texas.
See, that's what I'm thinking. I think I would have. I didn't know Walter Cronkite went to Texas. I didn't know that. I'm sure a lot of people listening did. But I'm like, Walter Cronkite at Arizona State was kind of shocking to me. I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked he went to Texas. I was shocked at the Arizona State.
Man, now I've got to look it up.
Yeah, I'm thinking
I've been told this whole time. It is the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. Okay. That much is true. And boy, we're supposed to be talking about something else, but we're trying to teach some folks here.
Media days. Yeah. Well, we're a very educational show. We're a lot like Sesame Street because Luke and I are both Muppets.
All right, Walter, the journalism program at Arizona State University named in honor of former CBS News anchor Walter Cronkite in '84. Let me see. The relationship started when the longtime owner of a CBS affiliate in Phoenix and a leading supporter of journalism at ASU contacted his friend Walter Cronkite in an effort to help the program an endowment on the behalf, blah, blah, blah. So I don't guess he went there. He just donated some money due to
some money, and then they name it after him. And now it's pretty cool. And I can see that. I don't know that there's. I mean, I know that's.
See, I just assumed he did go there because I was like, it'd be there with a reason. I mean,
that's a massive name in the journalism industry. But anyway, so Big 12 Media Days are tomorrow, and we'll get to that. I'm so fired up about it. It just indicates I'm a very sick person to be this excited about Big 12 Media Days, because Alabama doesn't play anybody in the Big 12. But to me, it's just like, wow, tomorrow college football sort of starts. I'm going to watch it all on ESPN Plus and ESPNU. They have a lot of coverage of Big 12 Media Days. It's a fascinating conference to me, Luke, because this is why. Last year, and you might not know this, so more education for you guys. I think it will be for Luke. Last year at Big 12 Media Days, Arizona State was picked to finish either dead last or second to last. That's what the media did. They had Arizona State last or second to last in this big 16-team league. And as we all know, they won the league and made the playoff. So this year, the Big 12 media, you know what they are? Quitters. Big 12 media is like, we're not doing that poll anymore. I guess they got tired of being embarrassed, but Big 12 media is not doing the poll anymore where they're predicting who wins the league. And I think it's because last year they got it so wrong. But what they should be touting is, this is why the Big 12 is one of the most fun leagues there is, because there's no freaking telling who's going to win that league.
That's my point exactly. They're taking away the most fun thing of it all. Because here's the other thing. What they will probably do is they will put out, like the SEC does, a first, a second, and a third team preseason all SEC, which is the dumbest. That is the dumbest. That makes no sense. At least your prediction of the teams and where they'll finish is rooted in some kind of education and experience. The idea that we have to, there'll be guys saying, hey, I don't know, freshman X at Georgia is going to be the best linebacker in the conference. Well, why do you think that? Because he was awesome in high school. Well, did he play in the spring game? No, he just got there in the fall. So you don't even know what he's going to look like when he gets there. That's so dumb. So, but if you want to say, okay, let's predict, let's have a poll for where the teams will be. That's what's fun. And you knocked it out of the park. The most fun thing of all is if it's hard. If it's easy in the SEC to go, I think it's going to be Texas, Bama, or Georgia, or maybe LSU.
I think
Mississippi State's going to be last. Okay.
I can name 6 or 8 Big 12 teams right now that I think might win the league. Arizona State could easily repeat with Sam Levitt at quarterback. Kansas State, really good, great coach. Avery Johnson back at quarterback, won 8 games a year ago. Texas Tech, major spender in the portal. And I'm talking about nationally, not just in the Big 12. Texas Tech basically has a portal team. Also have a good coach. Texas Tech could win the Big 12. Who else? Iowa State with Matt Campbell, pretty good. Kansas, that quarterback they've had forever, he's still there, Jalen Daniels, and Lance Leipold may be the best coach in that league. I know Kansas has been very quiet last couple of years. I don't rule out Kansas winning that league. Of course, Utah can win the league because they're kind of, they had a bad year last year, but generally that's a pretty consistent program. Just a lot. Baylor is a great sleeper. They won their last 6 regular season games a year ago and should be better than they were last season. They returned their quarterback and Sawyer Robertson. So wide open league, anyone can win it. I see very few teams that have like no chance. Like Cincinnati, I think, okay, I don't think they have a chance. BYU just lost their quarterback. Until BYU lost their quarterback last week, I think BYU had a chance to win this league. Some people think Central Florida is a sleeper in year 1 under Scott Frost. So what a fun league. Looking forward to media days to learn more about it. And I don't think it'll be a 2-bid league. I just think the champion of the Big 12, no one else is likely to get in because everyone is so evenly matched in that conference. I see sort of a cannibal situation where everybody but the champion has 3 or more losses and they're out. So I think only the Big 12 champion gets in the playoff. But the Big 12 champion will be somebody, I'm not saying dangerous, but look at Arizona State a year ago. Didn't they push Texas till there were zeros on the clock in that playoff game last year? I mean, I think you were there. Or
yeah,
maybe,
I was there. It was fun.
Yeah. So
and look, there were some really bad calls in favor of Texas. Just horrendous, terrible. There was a targeting call, which I just like.
I remember it.
I mean, yeah, stupid. But anyway, all right, that's going to do it for today's pod. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.